Hello and welcome back to the Data Privacy Lawyer. So we're going to be looking at the cookie policy for Klein. Now I've seen a couple things that I thought were quite interesting. Depending on geography will determine whether or not a particular global entity has a cookie policy. So the one we're going to be reviewing today is the one in Ireland. We're not going to be reviewing the US one, but it's interesting that the US website doesn't have a specific cookie policy. Now I'll opine on to why I think the Ireland website does, because Ireland is part of the European Union, and cookies in the European Union, they have a comprehensive data privacy law as opposed to the United States. It's currently very fragmented how data protection is rolled out in the United States, but it's very clear in the European Union, and cookies constitute personal data. We're not going to go to the US site, we're going to stay here. We're doing cookies today. So first thing that's really awesome, we have the date. So this was last updated last month. That's excellent. I always say it's very excellent when I see that businesses are taking privacy seriously, because what it demonstrates to me, generally when your external documents are being updated regularly, it means you take privacy seriously within your organization. Now, without seeing internally to your organization, I can't tell if that's the truth, but I can say if you're updating it at least on an annual basis, it means that somebody in your organization cares about how personal data is being treated, whether it's exclusive to the online documents or internally, but just the fact that it's being updated regularly shows some type of commitment. And we can see here they say privacy commitment, so that's great. We didn't get a cookie banner. I'm just going to take a look to see if there's a way for me to manage my preferences. You can do this by clicking the manage preferences in the cookie banner. Now, I wasn't presented with one. I'll tell you why I think I wasn't, because again, we saw at the beginning of this review, I'm accessing this site from the United States. So I have the opportunity to opt out, but I'm not required, or Klein Ireland is not required to send me the cookie banner in order for me to opt in explicitly, right? So I'm just going to quickly take a look to see, is there somewhere, let's see if it's here. Oh, great. Awesome. I love that they have a button at the bottom. I love that it was clear. I love that it was already there and easily accessible. You know, consumers, if they're scrolling down and they want to buy something, they can literally manage their preferences so quickly below. That's excellent. I'm going to reject all functional. I actually want to manage the preferences because I want to see this. Yes, I'll tell you why I clicked manage my preferences. I wanted to see if there was a description of what constitutes analytical. We're going to go back when I confirm my choices. I want to see if they use a consent management platform. And what a consent management platform is, businesses will get into an agreement contractually with an organization that helps them manage their consent. Now, there's different factors that constitute consent. Consent must be freely given. It must be specific. It can be withdrawn at any time. And, you know, there are specific factors associated with obtaining true consent from an individual. And so what many organizations have done is they've gone into contractual agreements with third parties to help them manage that consent. In the event that an individual needs to opt out, in the event that a regulator ever asks, hey, I want to see how you manage obtaining consent, I want to see that you have documentation showing when the person gave consent, you can actually delegate that work out to a third party, which is really useful for a lot of businesses because businesses are generally trying to make money. All of this compliance piece is something that is by the way, and having a third party manage that for you is great relief for businesses that are busy doing other things like making sales, okay? I wanted to click on this because I wanted to see their definition. You'll see that some of the consent management platforms define cookies differently. I love to review this as a privacy counsel for my clients because I want to make sure that whatever the cookie consent management platform is displaying is accurate for the business, okay? So we're going to confirm our choices. The other thing I want to make mention of before we actually get into the cookie policy itself is, according to Klein Ireland, they have functional cookies, analytical, social media, and advertising. Now, I think it's interesting that they've combined this. I've seen something generally when I've been looking at these reviews and other websites for other businesses. They've been separating social media and advertising, and I can't opine as to why they're doing that. The most important thing for a business is to be transparent. The fact that it's happening needs to be displayed on the site. Whether or not you choose to combine them as a preference is up to you. I can give a little insight into what I think is happening and why they're separating it. There are advertising agencies that have very sophisticated technologies that are different to social media. The identifiers that are obtained from these advertising agencies are a bit different to how a traditional like Facebook works or LinkedIn, these social media platforms. So it depends on your business is the answer. You know, it's a regular lawyer answer. It depends. Okay. Who is responsible? The responsibility for this cookie policy lies with Calvin Klein collectively. You might be wondering, why am I seeing this? Why would you be sharing this with a consumer? The reason they're sharing this with a consumer is because in the data protection space, there are two main parties, controller and processor. The responsibilities of a controller are greater than those of a processor under data protection laws. The reason you're seeing the responsible party is anything related to your data, anything related to the cookies, this is the entity you need to contact. Okay? You're not going to contact anybody else. And Calvin Klein Europe BV have an immense amount of responsibility when it comes to this cookie collection, deletion, and the whole cookie life cycle ultimately. They've explained why they use cookies. I want to talk about this one. Thirdly, social media and advertising cookies offer the possibility to connect you to social networks like Facebook. I don't know if it is Facebook, they just said social networks, and share content from our website on social media. Information that we obtain from advertising cookies is used to maintain your personal advertising profile. Now, this is very unique. Now, without looking internally at Calvin Klein's documentation for processing personal data, I'm intrigued about their use of the word profile. Profile in the data protection terms sometimes could be interpreted to profiling. And combining data and combining data sets is a risky activity from a data protection standpoint. Now, I don't know how they're doing this, and I don't know what personal advertising profile constitutes for Calvin Klein. But if a business is considering creating a profile on an individual, there are lots of different processes that they would need to go through. Now, that's something you could talk about with the Data Protection Council. If you're interested in creating a profile for your customers and you're looking for legal advice about how to do that, take a look in the description below and you can book some time to speak with me and we can talk about that separately. But I always look at all of the terminology that a business puts on their public-facing website because each section has a meaning. Everything means something, and it all needs to be reviewed by the Data Protection Council because you need to make sure that you're not being misleading or deceptive to your consumers. So every word means something, and a regulator is also going to look at it from the lens of what did your consumers think about what you put on your site? That's what they're looking at. The whole reason why we have all of these external facing documents is one, to comply with the law, but two, you want to maintain your customers' trust. How do you maintain trust? By being honest. You need to be honest about what you're doing with their data. And the responsibility lies on you as a controller to make sure that any disclosure that you're making on your public-facing website, I mean, anybody can look at this. That's why we do these reviews. We do these reviews to see what other consumers are looking at. Most will not be able to articulate each sentence. But really and truthfully, you don't want to be seen non-compliant by a regulator because that could result in an enforcement action against you and against your business. And generally, publicity-wise, it's not good when organizations come up wanting with relation to their privacy practices. I love that they have the contact details. It's really good that they have, two different forms of contacting. I think that this is primarily targeted to European Union residents, but I can't be sure. I am interested in whether or not somebody from the United States can purchase, goods and services from Calvin Klein Ireland. Probably they could. I will say that I think it's very good that they have the date here. And I think it was very excellent that they have a button here that talks about cookie settings. And the last thing I'm going to say for this particular review is your business needs to make it as easy as possible for a consumer to understand what you do with their data. They need to be able to exercise their preferences in a very easy manner without having to scroll 1,000 pages. Okay. So I really hope you enjoyed this review. I love doing these reviews. If you're a business and you're looking for privacy counsel, take a look at my description below. I'd love to help your business and I'll see you in another cookie policy audit.